Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So with module 25, we'll be getting the new campaign Neverwinter, and with it you should be able to obtain 3 new combat enchantments. In previous videos I've covered the Lightning Flash and the Refulgent Fortification, and now we've got to go over the Living Hex. Now this one is, I would say, primarily directed at tanks or those of you who want to be holding aggro with some sort of hybrid build. That could well be a possibility, but in order to obtain this, you will have to unlock the campaign, Neverwinter. Again, all this is the preview server, still open to change, and Module 25 won't be launching until probably mid-March. But once that's available, you shall be able to go and farm the currency to be able to buy this. And it's 100,000 astral diamonds, 500 of those glyphs of warding, which you get by doing your quests, plus your heroic encounters. And then you need 150 of these elite sigils, you can see right there, and you'll get those by mainly doing your lockdown event. You'll know all about it by the time the module goes live, along with mini bosses and along with assassins. And then you just need some mint, which you'll just be getting by, again, doing your quests, but it has a weekly cap of 100. So you'll purchase that combat enchantment, and now you need to go and upgrade it to make it equivalent item level of your other mythic combat enchantments. So doing so will cost you the same reagents as you would normally, just your refinement, your gold, glyphs, and you'll probably want to be using a coal moat, not some preservation wards. But we managed to get it to mythic, and you can see via the tooltip what it says it should be doing. Reducing the damage you take by 10%, very nice, which makes it in competition directly of our existing ones, Flash Freeze, Fortified Nature, and Soul Shield, all of which have that 10% damage reduction. And Flash Freeze, in my opinion, is probably still going to be the best for team support, reducing not just the damage you take, but also everybody by reducing the damage the enemy deals. Fortified Nature is a selfish one for stacking stats, which in my opinion isn't really reliable enough to be all too useful. And then Soul Shield if you're feeling a bit on a budget and want to be saving on those scrolls of life. So this Living Hex, it's just trying to compete with the other tank combat enchantments. And right from the get-go, I think it's a bit underwhelming. Why? Because all it really does as its secondary effect is increase the threat you generate, and the majority of tanks do not need that. We've already learned to play and adapt to the current strategy of DPS to create as much threat as possible at the beginning and then hold it throughout the fight. So we don't exactly need something that's going to help us with that, and we don't know exactly by how much. In this video we'll test and we'll see. And again, it would only be a personal thing, and you're only going to struggle with threat at the start of the fight. So it seems a bit of a waste to have a combat enchantment just for the beginning of the fight, whereas from then on it's very simply just use a hard taunt, like something that puts you on top of the threat list every 20 seconds, and you wouldn't have any problem with the threat. That is with currently all tanks except maybe a barbarian tank. Yes, I'm not sure, perhaps they could make use of this. But outside of that, paladins and fighters have no trouble with threat right now, at least any of the good ones. And so I feel this combat enchantment, it doesn't really have a place in the game right now. Now, what it says it does is whenever you get hit, you have a chance to put this Living Hex on your target. And we can see that effect when we go attack like this dummy. We make sure we have the threat, and then when it attacks us, again, it's a 10% chance. So 1 in 10 times that we get hit will trigger this effect. You can see he's hitting us here a number of times, and we still haven't triggered the effect. You'll see it because it will put this debuff on the enemy. You can see it right there, Living Hex. Fortunately, it's not cleansable, so there'll be no way the enemy can get rid of that, but it deals damage over time. Now, not a lot of damage over time, as you can see just here in the combat tracker, Living Hex, pretty small, like 1,700 is kind of the damage hits we're getting. And yeah, not a lot, all things considered. And we can compare that with our other damage values and okay, maybe it adds up to something. And it really then depends on what's the modifier, the threat modifier on it. because the way it works is the enemy is going to attack the person who they think has dealt the most damage. Tanks have abilities which have increased threat, which make it so that the damage they deal is multiplied by a value, and the enemy thinks they've done that much damage. For example, 10. If I've done 100 damage, the enemy would think I've done 1,000 damage. Anyway, we can have a test of this mythic living hex, and from what I can tell, it's got a 7,500% threat modifier. We can see that by this math right here. So we've compared our damage to the damage of our companion. The way you do this is like I summon this illusion, I maybe attack it twice, and then I move away and let my companion attack. And then it does enough damage, and you can see I lose the threat. The dummy is no longer going to attack me because I don't have the highest threat against the target. So as soon as I lose the threat, I stop the log, or I stop the guy from attacking, so that we can equate the damage, and there you go. You look at the math here. This is from our Valorous Strike, multiplying by 9 because that's our global modifier on the Paladin. And then this is the Living Hex damage multiplied by 75 to get the equivalent damage near enough to what the Scorpion was dealing. I had to let him deal enough damage so he got more threat than me. That way you can see he's done a little bit more than it would show exactly through the math. So yeah, 75 is equivalent of 7,500% multiplier. You can see again another test here, a good bit longer. We did the same damage test there with the Living Hex, and it equates again to be about 75. That's significant. That's a lot. Right now on the Paladin, like the most we have is ×9 from Oath of Protection. We have ×8 from Oath Strike, and so on. And I want to test the other tanks this way as well. And I'll probably make a dedicated video just explaining again threat on the Paladin and how to make sure you have the attention of your enemy. We need to test these things out again, see if they've made any changes, and just give a refresher video on that. And since with this new method, it's a lot easier, I'll probably be able to do it then with the fighter and the barbarian as well. Just let me know if you're interested in that. But overall, this mythic living hex, I don't see it as viable whatsoever with regards to being a paladin tank or even a fighter tank, since they have it even easier at holding the threat. Now, a barbarian tank, maybe. But again, the problem is this 10% chance, and the most times that people struggle with threat is at the beginning of the fight. And this 10% chance, if it doesn't trigger right at the beginning, it's kind of useless because you need the threat at the beginning. So yeah, either Cryptic, you got to change something with that so it doesn't have like a 10% chance, so it guarantees like triggers at a certain point, and then maybe has a cooldown instead of the chance. That would be more useful. But the way it is now, I don't see it as useful at all. Having a chance is not something you can rely on. And well, you still have your mythic flash freeze, which that 10% chance is actually 100% chance. Yeah, every time he hits me, we gain the stack. It's 100% chance. I don't know whether they want to fix that at some point, but that's how it stands. And this new living hex comparatively is pretty useless. Again, change it so instead of having a chance, it guarantees triggers whenever you're struck, but maybe has a cooldown of 15 seconds or something. Anyway, hopefully this has been somewhat insightful to you guys. I do not recommend going out there getting this living hex unless you're maybe a barbarian tank, but even then, it's not going to help you with initial aggro. So in my opinion, it's useless. Hopefully they make some adjustments to this, because as it stands, I don't see it as being used at all other than by people who don't know any better. Massive thank you again to all of these channel members for their continued support. You can support me for as little as €1 a month by clicking the join button down below. And so we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.